let's kick off a new series where I will discuss with you my test-taking strategies and how you can possibly make your test-taking more stress-free, relaxing, and easier for you. Of course, you don't need to listen to my strategies. You can continue implementing your own, but I believe that mine will indeed help you. So let's start off this series with APUSH test strategies. Now, in APUSH, the test is normally made up of 3 parts. You have an essay, you have a short answer, and you have multiple choice. Today I will be reviewing multiple choice and SAQ because the essay would take a video of its own in its entirety because it would take so long to explain the detail and to give you a structured understanding of what you need to do for such an essay, especially since there are multiple types of essays and different prompts that you could possibly be given. So, I'm going to discuss with you different APUSH test-taking strategies for multiple choice and SAQ. So here we have 6 strategies, 3 multiple choice and 3 SAQ. I will not be going in order, in fact, because this one should always come first when you're taking an SAQ. And these, in fact, do not come in order either. So this is just a list. It's just a list. So we have review the stimulus, which is for multiple choice. Pick the best answer. Look for clues. So here are our multiple choice ones. Designated MC for multiple choice. For SAQ, we have writing claims, using strong evidence, and brainstorm. And so hopefully these 6 strategies will help you on your next test for APUS history. So let's start off with review the stimulus for multiple choice. So I have my trusty AMSCO book, 2018 version, and here it's we have a stimulus. It's a political cartoon. It says, so you can see it. Okay. All credit to AMSCO and their book. You know, I would also recommend getting this yourself. It's very useful, very good read, very powerful tool for the test, but don't use it as your only tool for study. You can use me as well. But seriously, you should have multiple different studying methods and tools for a diverse studying method. And not only will this series talk about test strategies, I'm digressing from the point, but not only will this series talk about test-taking strategies, we'll also go over studying strategies eventually. But right now, this is the first video, APUSH test strategy. Now, let's not digress away from the topic anymore. So you've seen the political cartoon, and so when I say review the stimulus, I mean thoroughly look at the stimulus. What is the topic of the stimulus? Now, if I look at this, it says stay out for my sake as well as your own. It says democracy begging at the foot of Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is just looking all cool like this, while War Mad Europe is, just behind them blowing up. You can see the Congress building, the Capitol building right there. And it says, America, the last refuge of democracy. Okay. And it says, the only way we can save her, right here, is the title of this. And this was made by Carrie Orr, in 1939. So 1939, that's going to be important, right? Sorry, you saw my face, close up on my face. Probably really disgusting, but yeah, so it says 1939, so that's context. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pen, and I'm going to mark here, if you're allowed to mark on your tests, of course, please do so. If not, then mark in your head, I guess. Or maybe, like, if you have scratch, maybe just ask for if you could have, like, scratch sheet of paper or something. I don't know. Just make a mental note or some sort of note. What I'm going to do is, because I'm normally allowed to write on my tests, and this is my AMSCO book, I will circle 1939. And I'm going to put an arrow to that, and I will label that CXT, or context. Just like that. Alright? And then I'm going to box the title, and I'm going to draw an arrow pointing towards it and say CXT, because that's also context. Now, off to the side of the political cartoon, I'm going to say topic, underline right there, and I'm going to say isolationism in America during World War II. And then I will put a hyphen, because this will be my first piece of evidence. Stay out and last refuge. Alright, so here is my markup of this political cartoon. Now, you might not have time for this if you're a very slow test taker, but this is a good strategy that I think that you should implement. Okay? So, this is a good way to mark up your test. And so this is what I mean by review the stimulus. Don't just look at the stimulus or read it. Review it. Look at it thoroughly. Understand what the topic is. Now, for those of you who have taken AP World History, you know that sometimes the stimulus does not actually relate to the topic of the question. But sometimes it does. Alright? And in order to understand that, you have to look at the stimulus before reading the questions. It'll give you an understanding of what you might need for the questions. And guess what? If you review the stimulus and then it turns out that the questions afterwards don't require the stimulus, then yes, you might have wasted time. But what if it hadn't? Right? What if those questions hadn't been not related? That's a double negative. What if those questions had been related to the stimulus? Right? Like, these questions, since they're from the AMSCO book, they're going to have to be related. Which of the following attitudes most directly contributed to the perspective of this cartoon? You're going to have to understand what the cartoon is talking about for this. And so that's why Review the Stimulus is a very powerful tool for questions that actually have stimulus. Now, for knowledge-based questions, it's not going to be the same, but for stimulus questions, yes, this is a very powerful tool. Especially if the questions following the stimulus are, in fact, related to that stimulus. Alright, and so now let's get into the next one, which is look for clues. Alright, we're skipping the second one because that comes last, because picking the best answer, you should always pick your answer last. So, look for clues. When I say look for clues, I mean look for clues in the answer choices. Okay, now let's look at this first question together. Right, so here's the first question. I'll let you read it. Again, all credit to AMSCO. There's no answer key for this, so we're going to have to actually try and figure this out ourselves. Alright, so it says, which of the following attitudes, I'll read it again, which of the following attitudes most directly contributed to the perspective of this cartoon? Again, which of the following attitudes most directly, we'll underline that, contributed to the perspective, we'll circle perspective, of this cartoon. Okay, so we're looking for the most directly contributing, we're looking for the most directly contributing factor, or attitude in this case, for the perspective. So we're looking for something having to do with perspective, and we have to look for the most direct. This also relates to pick the best answer. Okay? So, yes, these two go hand in hand for look for clues. So you're going to look for clues to find the best answer. So that's why I underlined most directly. Most directly, best answer. Okay? Now, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's talk more about the looking for clues. Okay? So let's look at the answer choices now. And when we're looking for clues in the question and in the answer choices. So we've looked for clues in the question. Now let's look for clues in the answer choices. So A says, the priority of President Roosevelt to protect Latin American nations. Nothing in the political cartoon has anything to do with Latin American nations, so we will cross that one out. The strong opposition to helping the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin makes no mention of that. So the clue is in fact Joseph Stalin. The clue here is Latin American. And I'm going to box each clue. So the clue here for how this is the wrong answer is it says Latin American. The clue for why this one is wrong is because it says Soviet Union and Joseph Stalin, which are never mentioned. See, the isolationist sentiment that developed after World War I. We'll box isolationist because that is, and we'll put a little check mark because we know that that is what we were looking for because we did the topic, we did the reviewing of the stimulus. So the next one is the anti-war policies of the Franklin Roosevelt administration. Now the key word here is anti-war. But Franklin Delano Roosevelt was in fact pro-war. He was for the war. He joined the war as soon as he possibly could. In fact, he had even established alliances with the Allies before even declaring war formally against Japan and the European Axis powers. So we can cross that one out as well because the clue here was anti-war. In fact, the Franklin Roosevelt administration was not anti-war, nor were they even isolationist. It was America that was isolationist, not the administration. So that means that C has to be the right answer. Okay? So we've looked for our clues in the answer choices to help us delineate the best answer. And best answer. So this brings us into our other strategy for multiple choice, which is pick the best answer. Because the question asked most directly. So let's look at the next one. And we'll try and do the same thing. Now it says, which of the following events most directly underline conflicted with the perspective? Conflicted. Okay, so we're going to squiggle conflicted. We're going to circle perspective. And here we were going to squiggle contributed. But we didn't do that before. Conflicted with the perspective of the cartoon. So it's the same question, just changed to conflicted versus contributed. So it says, so here, I'll let you look at it first. Again, credit to AMSCO. I'm going to have to say this every time, probably. Alright. Hopefully you got that down. So A is congressional hearings into the causes of the U.S. entry into World War I. Congressional hearings into the causes of U.S. entry into World War I. That doesn't make sense. So we're gonna put a question mark next to it, which is actually a strategy for choose the best answer. If you don't understand an answer choice, you're going to put a question mark because you're trying to choose the best answer. If you don't know, if you see an answer choice that you think is better than the other one, and the one that you think is better is up against the one with a question mark, then you're going to want to choose the one that does not have a question mark because it's the one that you understand more, right? You're going to choose the best answer, okay? The Spanish Civil War between the fascist and Republican forces. That has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, so we're going to cross that out. Passage of laws prohibiting arms sales, bank loans, and travel to nations at war. That is, in fact, isolationist. And during the Spanish Civil War, America was not allowed to even engage in the Spanish Civil War. Ernest Hemingway did anyways, but that is, in fact, part of the thing. Roosevelt's call for democracies to quarantine aggressive nations. That is literally the exact opposite of isolation, is it not? So we're going to circle that one. So we have a check mark versus a question mark, right? Our best answer is going to be D versus A. A has a question mark, but D has a check mark. So D is going to be the better answer, which is why we're choosing that as the best answer. All right, so that's it for multiple choice. And now we will talk about SAQ. So now let's talk about SAQ strategies. So our first one is Brainstorm. Now, you will probably have 12 minutes per SAQ. Not a lot of time. Or is it? Now, a lot of people get worried and stressed over the amount of time and they start going, oh, gotta write. That's not going to help you. You gotta brainstorm first. You gotta think about what the question is asking you. I have a sample SAQ from AMSCO. All credit to AMSCO again. So here's the stimulus for the SAQ question 1. Here are the parts. For question 1. Don't look at question 2. We're just looking at question 1. Alright. We have read, hopefully, we've read the stimulus or the excerpts for the SAQ, right? Executive Order 8802 and Executive Order 9066. We need to brainstorm. So when I say brainstorm, you need to look at what the meaning of the text is. So brainstorm is going to be like, all right, so what is some evidence for this? What can I use as evidence from this? All right? You're just going to brainstorm. All right, so what does this mean? What is it talking about? What's the significance? Those are the 3 things you're going to look at when you're brainstorming. You're going to create either a concept map or some sort of chart or table or whatever you feel is most necessary for you. I normally do a concept map, but you can do whatever you want, whatever is easiest for you. And so after we've read the stimulus, what you're going to do, create your whatever brainstorm thing. You're going to answer those questions. What does this mean? What are some evidence I can use, and what is the significance? Okay? So let's look at the questions. So A, it says, briefly explain the context for the executive order of June 25th, 1941, which is 8802. So 8802, right? So you need to start talking about what is it, create that brainstorm, right? So when you're doing the brainstorm, you need to also look at the questions. What are the questions asking? What am I trying to find? You're not going to create a brainstorm without knowing what you're trying to look for. That's really stupid. You are, however, going to try and look for what you feel is significant while you're reading the stimulus or while you're looking at the political cartoon, and you're going to do the review the stimulus thing if you do get a political cartoon or a stimulus like this, right? You're going to review it. You're going to do the exact same thing here. You're going to review the stimulus, and you're going to brainstorm. So these can actually apply to the same thing, but brainstorm includes review the stimulus in itself. So brainstorm is in fact its own thing. So brainstorming is a little more in detail than review the stimulus because you're writing an SAQ, not answering a multiple choice question. In multiple choice, you can narrow it down to answers, and in SAQ, you have to figure out the answer yourself. Alright, there's no narrowing down here. You have to figure it out yourself. Okay, that's why it's important to brainstorm. And I recommend brainstorming for about 4 to 5 minutes. Alright, take about half the amount of time that you need for the SAQ and brainstorm. Okay? Then write with your remaining time. Okay? Write the answer to all 3 questions with your remaining time. And that should be pretty easy, right? Because when you're writing an SAQ, you only really need 3 to 4 sentences. 5 at most, all right? No more than 5 sentences. No less than 3, no more than 5, okay? Only 3 to 5 sentences. You would need a claim, and you need strong evidence, but then you would also need a significance. What is the significance of this? Why is this? And you also need to relate back to the prompt, of course. If you don't relate back to the prompt, you will never get the SAQ point, and you only get 1 point. Briefly explain the context for Executive Order February 19th, 1942. That's Executive Order 9066. You would brainstorm that. You would brainstorm, all right, so what is this? What does it mean? What is the significance? And what evidence can I use? Okay? Now, then the last one is briefly explain one inconsistency or similarity between the 2 orders. This is a comparison question, right? So you're going to compare them. How are you going to compare them? By using evidence from here. And so this brings us to our next point, which is using strong evidence. So in your brainstorm, you're going to try and find the strongest evidence you can possibly find. Of course, in an SAQ, you are not going to cite directly from the source. That would be stupid. You're going to explain what you're seeing. All right? You're going to state what it is. This is really just a sort of introduction for it, sort of like the stimulus questions from before, right? Just like an introduction to the question, not actually the question itself. It's not like, all right, so what is the point of view of this? What's the purpose of this? What's the intended audience, right? You're not trying to figure that out. That's for a DBQ, which we'll do later, right? And so, using strong evidence, you're going to want to use the strongest evidence you can find. Alright, that's why you're going to brainstorm to find the best evidence you possibly can find. Writing claims. Now this is going to take a bit of a tutorial for writing a claim. So you're going to start off your claim, right, with the time frame. Okay, time frame of the question. In this case, we'll say 1941. Okay, so you're gonna start off with a time frame. All right. The next thing you're gonna do after your time frame. Hold up, let me just write claim like that. The next thing you're gonna do after you write your time frame is you're going to talk about the topic of question. Okay. Then you're going to mention prompt. Okay. And then you're going to state, your answer. Then, with your evidence, you're going to prove your answer with good evidence as support. Right? That's what you should always do. And if you didn't know this before, well, now you do. And if you did know this before, then that's good. But you need to put it into practice. So I would recommend practicing with this over and over and over again. All right, so why don't we write a mock claim together, okay? For A, we'll do A. On June 25th, 1941, okay? Executive Order number 8802, right? Executive Order 8802 was now you need a good verb here. And so this is an executive order, so what are you going to use as your verb? Right? And it also has to relate back to the prompt. Was, we'll say, carried out because of stress on FDR's administration from civil rights activists. Right? And this comes from our strong piece of evidence. This is our answer, and now we're going to explain it. So our evidence would be talking about proving this event. So we would talk exactly about this event because this would be the context for A. Alright, so now hopefully you understand some better test taking strategies and you will do better on your next test. And I will see you in the next video.